The desert stretched endlessly, golden grass whispering under the dying sun as the rancher rode his horse slowly. Across the plain, the leather creaking beneath him, the weight of silence pressing heavy. He had lived his life by the rules of the old world, rules passed down from men who carved ranches out of dust and war, men who told him never to interfere, never to cross lines with those the frontier called outsiders. And yet, that evening, as the wind shifted and carried a faint, desperate cry, something inside him froze. His horse stopped too, ears flicking forward, nostrils flaring as if it had caught the same sound, a voice ragged and raw, cutting through the stillness. "Oh, please, I am begging you. Untie it." He turned his head and followed the sound, spurring the horse forward with an urgency he had not felt in years. And when he crested the ridge, his heart lurched. There, tied cruelly between four heavy posts, was a young Apache girl. Her arms and legs were bound wide apart with thick ropes, her body dirt-streaked, her breath coming shallow as though she had been left for the sun to finish. Her eyes locked on his, dark pools filled with both fire and despair. And for a moment the rancher sat frozen in the saddle, the words of tradition echoing in his head. "Do not meddle. Do not touch what is not yours. Let things lie as they are meant to." He gripped the reins tight, jaw clenching, because everything he had been taught told him to turn away, to ride back down the ridge and pretend he had never heard her. But the girl's voice rose again, trembling yet unyielding. "Please, untie me. I do not deserve this." The rancher dismounted slowly, boots pressing into the dirt, his eyes flicking to the horizon as though expecting others to appear. Warriors, men of her tribe, or perhaps even men of his own who would call him a fool. The horse snorted nervously as he approached her, his shadow falling across her outstretched arm. "Why are you bound here?" he asked, his voice deep, uncertain, carrying the weight of judgment and doubt. She coughed, lips cracked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Punishment. They say I dishonored them. They say I must lie here until the sun or the coyotes take me. But I did nothing wrong. I would rather die than beg them again." Her head turned slightly, her eyes burning into his. "But I beg you." The rancher's hand hovered over the rope tied to her wrist. He could feel the rough fibers, the tight knots meant not to slip. His father's voice echoed in his mind. "A rancher stands by his kind. You meddle with their affairs, you'll bring war on your land." For years he had lived by that creed, keeping peace by distance, surviving by silence. But as he looked down at the girl, helpless and left to the cruelty of the sun, he realized this was no matter of tradition or politics. This was a matter of a human life hanging by a thread. His breath came heavy as he pulled the knife from his belt. For a long second he stared at the blade, then at her bound wrist. "If I do this," he muttered almost to himself, "I break everything I've been taught. I make an enemy of my own people and maybe yours too." She closed her eyes, and a single tear slipped down her cheek, tracing a line through the dust on her skin. "If you do not," she whispered, "you let me die when you could have saved me, and you will carry that ghost forever." Something inside him cracked, then the weight of his father's voice, the iron chains of tradition snapping one by one. With a sharp slice, the rope on her wrist fell free. She gasped, not with fear but with sudden hope, her chest heaving as she realized he had chosen. He moved quickly now, cutting the bonds at her ankles, then the other wrist, until at last she lay limp in the dirt, free but trembling. For a long moment neither spoke. The rancher knelt, slipping his arm beneath her shoulders, lifting her gently as though she were made of glass. She was lighter than he expected, weakened by thirst and exhaustion. She leaned into him, her breath shallow against his chest. His horse shifted uneasily as he carried her, but he set her carefully across the saddle, holding her steady before mounting behind her. "Why did you save me?" she asked, her voice barely audible against the rumble of his horse's stride as they began to move away from that cruel place. He looked down at her, his rugged face shadowed by the brim of his hat. "Because no tradition, no law, no boundary is worth a life left to die in the dust. Sometimes a man has to decide who he is, by what he saves, not what he destroys." They rode into the twilight, the wind cool against their faces, leaving behind the posts that had once held her captive. The rancher knew there would be consequences. Men would talk, perhaps even hunt him for what he had done, but he also knew he could no longer live shackled to silence. He had broken tradition, yes, but he had saved a life, and in her eyes, he saw something that reminded him of the man he wished to be. For her, freedom was everything. For him, her plea had shattered the walls of his own cage. And as the stars began to prick the sky, the rancher tightened his hold on the reins, silently vowing that no matter the storm to come, he would protect the girl who had begged only for her life and unknowingly set his spirit free.